So we're all in quarantine. We've all seen or at least heard about Tiger King on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, totally recommend it. It's kind of crazy, a little wild to kind of keep up with all the stories, but it's pretty great. But today we're not going to talk about Joe Exotic or anything like that. We're going to talk about the disappearance of Don Lewis. So Don Lewis was actually born Jack Donald Lewis on April 30th, 1938 in Dade City, Florida. By 1981, he was a self-made millionaire. He achieved his wealth mainly through his real estate business and his used car sale business. At the time that he achieved his self-made millionaire status, Don had been married to his first wife, Gladys Lewis, and they had 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son. In 1981, Donald met Carole. In January 1981, Carole was married at the time to Michael Murdoch. She says that he was very abusive, and so they had gotten into one of their fights, and she decided to take a walk to kind of clear her mind and get away from the fight that she was having with her husband Michael. And she went walking on Nebraska Ave when she met Don, who was in a car, and he had seen her and pulled over to talk to her. Guys, I grew up in Florida. I'm a Tampa native. If you're also a Tampa native, you know that nobody's just casually walking on Nebraska Avenue. We all know. So for those of you who did not grow up in Florida, or did not grow up in Tampa rather, I say, Nebraska Ave is a sketchy place. Nebraska Ave, there's a lot of prostitution there. That whole area is known to be not very safe. It's just not somewhere that a young girl would want to be walking by herself in the middle of the night. So when she said that it was because she was just walking to clear her mind, no. If you grew up in Tampa, you know that you're not just walking casually on Nebraska Avenue at 1 a.m. No, you're not. They met, they hit it off, started having an affair. By 1991, they had kept up their affair, and they decided to divorce both of their partners and get married to each other. Once they were married, Don actually had amassed a good amount of wealth, and he had this land where he kept some of his exotic animals. It was called Wildlife on Easy Street, and they had tigers and just a whole bunch of other exotic animals there. Don thought about it as a business. He was a businessman. He thought they could breed the tigers, they could breed the rest of the animals and profit from that. Carole, on the other side, she wanted it to be more of a sanctuary for animals, and she didn't necessarily agree with breeding the animals because she thought okay, well, the ones we have, they're in captivity. It's just a sanctuary, but let's not continue having more animals in this situation. Also, guys, these cute little Barefoot Moscato things are so great. Don Lewis disappeared on August 18th, 1997. Okay, that's my birthday. I was born on August 18th, not in 1997, but also on August 18th. He left his home early morning around 6 a.m. to get a delivery, and he was never seen again. 2 days later, on August 20th, they had found Don's white Dodge Ram at Pilot Country Airport. Don had airplanes. He also had his pilot license, which he had lost because he had been in some accidents and he lost it. But he did have airplanes, and so it wasn't strange that his car was found at this airport because he was known to fly his plane to Costa Rica. It's a spot he really liked. So Pilot Country Airport was 40 miles away from his house and from the sanctuary. The investigation started, and they could not find Don at all. The Hillsborough County Sheriff Department, they didn't find where they found his car any foul play. So they ended up flying to Costa Rica, and they were there for about 5 days and just kind of trying to figure out what happened to Don. Did he fly down there? Because like I said before, he avidly went down to Costa Rica. They were in Costa Rica, didn't find any leads, didn't get any information, and so they just came back to Florida. Everything kind of went cold, all the trails. They also ended up going to the house, searching the acres that he owned, and they didn't find anything there, any suspicion of foul play, nothing like that. So 5 years later, He was declared legally dead on August 19, 2002 because they had not found him. They couldn't trace anything to him, if he had flown, if he had not flown, if he was missing, if something happened to him, nothing. There was no evidence of anything. During their investigation, they had also found that like his credit cards hadn't been used, nothing. Like it was just cold. So they ended up pronouncing him legally dead. 3 years after legally pronouncing him dead, the police department actually started with the theory that if Don disappeared, he did not disappear on his own and by himself. So he must have either one, had help, or was met with foul play. Despite the police theory that Don had help disappearing, no arrests were ever made. No one was ever charged with any crime relating to the disappearance of Don Lewis. It's just remained a mystery since then. Many theories had come up on how Don Lewis disappeared, and one of them is that he did own airplanes, and he had mentioned that he loved going to Costa Rica. He went all the time. Associates of him had said that maybe he was having an affair with somebody down in Costa Rica and he really loved going there. And so the theory was that maybe he took his plane, one of his planes, flew illegally because he had lost his pilot license, and flew down to Costa Rica and is now living there under a new name, under a new identity, and just kind of abandoned his whole life from before. That theory, of course, is possible because they found his car at the Pilot Country Airport, and so maybe he did board a plane illegally and nobody knows about it, or maybe he got on the airplane illegally and flew down to Costa Rica and just, you know, said he would start a new life, and that's what he's doing. He did have land and businesses down in Costa Rica, so it wasn't like if he did do that, just kind of go to Costa Rica, he wasn't there with nothing and like not knowing anybody. It was somewhere he knew very well, so it's a possibility. Another theory is that he was going to Costa Rica, maybe not to disappear, but just on a trip down to either buy something or have some business down in Costa Rica, and he was flying down there and his plane crashed, and maybe crashed in the middle of the ocean, and no body has ever been recovered. So a lot of people think that's a strong theory because, like I mentioned before, Don had been in some plane accidents, and that's how he ended up losing his license. So a lot of people believe that he just took one of his planes and was going to go down there himself, because he did like to fly his airplanes even though he didn't have his license anymore, and that he went down there and had another accident and his plane crashed into the ocean, and we've just never been able to find any remains, because how would we if he did crash in the middle of the ocean? It'd be very difficult to pinpoint an area in which he disappeared. The problem with both of these theories is that in order for a plane to leave, they have to document, and it has to be reported that this airplane is leaving, when they're leaving, who's piloting the plane, all of that information. And at the time that Don Lewis disappeared, there was no record of him ever getting on a plane, ever leaving Florida. A lot of people started to speculate that maybe he did not actually get on an airplane and leave, and that something else happened to him. The most talked about theory is that his wife, Carole, ended up murdering him. Okay, we've all seen the documentary, or if you haven't, spoiler alert, just so you guys know. So the theory is that Carole killed her husband. The reason a lot of people think that she killed her husband was because 2 months prior to Don's disappearance, he had gone and filed a domestic violence injunction against Carole because he claimed that she and him had gotten into a fight and that she had threatened to kill him multiple times during that fight, and he was afraid of her. However, this injunction was never issued by the judge, and it just kind of stayed at that. It's something that he just wanted on record, and he wanted her away from him, but it didn't work. Carole herself has also mentioned that he told her multiple times that he wanted a divorce from her. Maybe he did have, an affair in Costa Rica, and that's why he went all the time, and maybe he was gonna leave her as well and kind of start a new life with this person in Costa Rica. Months prior to his death, he started moving a lot of his funds to Costa Rica, a lot of his business to Costa Rica, kind of seemingly about to plan his complete transition to Costa Rica. At the time of Don's disappearance, he was worth maybe well over $5 million. The majority of his fortune now belongs to Carole. After they declared him legally dead. She stayed with his money, she stayed with the property, she stayed with the sanctuary, which is now called Big Cat Rescue. So she amassed all his wealth, and not even his children received at least half. They didn't even receive half. She kept all of it, most of it. So many people believe that she killed him because he was gonna leave her. She knew that he was probably not gonna leave her anything. She would kind of be left with nothing. She'd be just out in the dust and not knowing what to do. Had spent most of her life married to her abusive ex-husband, and now to this man who was about to leave her with nothing, and she was just gonna have to start all over again. Maybe she decided to kill him because of that and keep all of his money. And so there's theories within this theory. So many people believe she murdered him and put him through the meat grinder that they had in their property and then fed him to the tigers. It sounds kind of outlandish, but even her children had asked that the police run DNA on that meat grinder because they really believed that she ran him through that meat grinder and fed him to the tigers. I mean, what a perfect way to get rid of evidence. You just feed it to the tigers. Who's gonna go search in a tiger's belly? Not me. And the Hillsborough police, they did not end up looking at the meat grinder or testing it for any kind of DNA. And so that theory just kind of stayed a theory. Another theory is that she murdered him and put him under the septic tank that they had at their house. That septic tank was also not removed or gone through. That just kind of stayed a theory. However, it's possible, I think that the Hillsborough police could have dug a little bit deeper. I think that they should have run the meat grinder for DNA. Who knows? I mean, these people freaking own tigers. They own wild animals. Like, most people aren't sitting here buying tigers and lions and crossbreeding them and making ligers. Like, most people aren't doing that. And these people had this huge sanctuary of animals. And, I don't know. Maybe she did run him through that meat grinder. Maybe she did feed him to the tigers. Maybe he's under the septic tank. But I believe that the Hillsborough police could have done more and at least run the meat grinder for DNA. The children asked for it. They believed that that was a very strong theory. And why not? A person has gone missing. No one knows what happens to him. No one has any evidence or any links. I feel like if they would have run the meat grinder and there was no evidence, great, there's no evidence, okay? He wasn't run through the meat grinder, and they could just take off another possibility off their list and kind of start narrowing more and more what could have happened to this man. But they didn't. They also didn't look at the septic tank. Yes, they did an investigation around the premises and on the acres, but they didn't see anything. But that's just one thing. It's not like if she did murder him, that she killed him and just left him on the field for somebody to find. Like, who does that? These people are big cat people, all right? So I just think that, as outlandish as it sounds, that they should have run the meat grinder for DNA. I mean, it's outlandish to have tigers, so, it's not that outlandish to assume that a tiger could have killed somebody. They didn't do enough, I don't think. I think it's because Carole Baskin's brother worked for the police department, and maybe she was like, this is what happens, or created a story, and whose sibling would want their sibling to go down for something like murder and have this publicity and everything. And maybe he did have something to do with it. Many people believe because Carole Baskin's brother worked for the police department that he kind of just, did it so that the investigation wasn't as thorough as maybe it should have been. So Carole never cooperated with police, never did a polygraph. She said it was on the advice of her counsel. But if you're not guilty and you got nothing to hide, then you got nothing to hide. And why not just do a polygraph? All of Dawn's children submitted to polygraphs. They had nothing to do with it. So they were like, polygraph me, ask me any kind of questions you need. I'm open to everything. But Carole was acting kind of suspicious I don't know. She said she was just going off of what her counsel said, and they said don't cooperate. I mean, it just seems a little suspicious. Many people believe that Carole killed him to stay with the money, to stay with the property, because he was going to leave her, and has never cooperated because she is guilty and has involvement. And either he's in the septic tank or he was eaten by the tigers. Who knows? I don't know. I believe that Carole Baskin murdered her husband. I can't say I'm 100% sure because I don't know. I wasn't there. I have no idea. Everything kind of just seems to make sense. She had an answer for every single thing. I think it's possible that she planted his car at the Pilot Country Airport to make it seem like he left. That he got into an airplane and went to Costa Rica and just is living a whole new life. I think that the fact that police didn't find any foul play doesn't mean that she didn't have anything to do with it. I actually think that it supports the theory more that she just drove that car after murdering him and left it there to make it seem like he got into an airplane. I can't say for sure that she did because I have no idea. I have no evidence. I was not there, but I believe that Carole Baskin killed her husband. I think maybe one day somebody who knows something is going to come forward. I believe that people are trying to get the Hillsborough County Police to reopen the investigation of Don Lewis's disappearance because, like I've mentioned in my previous disappearance videos, how does a person just disappear and nobody knows? I also don't believe he would just go and start a new life and just like abandon his children and never speak to anybody he knew ever again. I don't know. I just don't think it sounds like a rational idea, but I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think that Carole murdered her husband? Do you think that he got into a plane and had a plane crash and his plane crashed somewhere that we won't be able to find? Or do you guys think that he did go to Costa Rica and start a new life and maybe he's down there? I don't know. So let me know what you guys think. I know this is a very hot topic right now because we're all in quarantine. We're all home. Well, I mean, I have to go to work every single day. But most of us are in quarantine at home, and most of us have heard about or have seen Tiger King, and we all have our own theories. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Okay.